Okay, so for the trade plan this morning, first of all, starting at 1994 and 3/4, and each of these, okay, so the zones that have an S in them, guys, on the way down, specifically 1984 and 1/4 and 1994 and 3/4, I expect a response out of them right out of the gate, looking lower. We're obviously gapping down, so the first questions that I have prior to hitting here, I'm not crazy about where Globex low hit. It's kind of in between Friday's low and my first support point. I am waiting on 1994 and 3/4. Now I want to be clear. The trades have been working in the first half hour. The first half hour has elevated risk. If we have an open drive lower, right, we will simply drive right. It's the odds of simply driving straight through the zones with no rotation increases. Decide on your risk profile whether trading in the first half hour is appropriate or inappropriate. I can say for the gross majority of all the people I one-on-one coach, when they do not trade the first half hour, their P&L over time is consistently higher than those who trade in the first half hour, with very, very few exceptions. That's all I'm going to say about that. Whatever you do, make sure it's been written down and you've decided before the next 2 minutes as to whether or not you're going to trade in the first half hour. So that being said, assuming we hit this after the first half hour, this is automatic for me. First time into the zone, looking for a counter rotation back up, and then first time to 1984 and 1/4. We have two key areas. Again, I'm working off the concept that the super high volatility is gone, that 25 to 30 point areas will provide large rotations back up. So with that in mind, we closed 2010.75, the 1989.50 to 1987.50 gives us 20 down, right? From 1984 and 1/4 to 1982 and 1/4, I'm definitely interested in taking a push back to the upside. This is also off of a long-term uptrend. I would expect responsive buyers either from the 89.50 or the 84 and 1/4 either way. Intraday, since we're opening at 2000, 20 down, puts us at this 1980. Again, this 1979 and 1/4. That puts all three of these zones as areas I'm very interested in, looking at a rotation back to the upside. The pattern that I'm expecting today, even on a gap down. So the concern is that we gap down and we have a true trend day down with no counter rotation. How am I going to know if that is occurring? The way I will know if that's occurring is I will look at the size of the rotation in the first half hour. If we have 10 down and 2 up, I know that I'm probably in a somewhat unhealthy market and I need to wait for a big stretch and to actually possibly even witness a large counter rotation before jumping in. If we open up, we come down and backside test Friday's low, push to Monday's high, and we start getting a pattern that looks like this. This is a healthy market, right? Generally categorized by 5 and 10-minute bars that have greater than 5-point rotations. Those are ideal, right? If we open up like yesterday and we have a 4 to 6 point range in the first hour, I'm going to know it's going to be slow, grindy, and choppy. I'm going to automatically back off and plan to do less. Okay. If we exceed below this 2079, something's changed over what we've had in the last 2 weeks, and I'll have to reconsider my model. And actually, what happens then is the old model minus 50 comes back into play that we had a couple weeks ago. I don't think that's the scenario, but again, I don't know and I don't need to know. I'll let the market tell me. Also, this area back here, this 1994 to 1992 area, is a 50-60 from the gap up that we had. It's not the 50-60 from the swing low, but it is a 50-60, and I do expect response back up in this area the first time. Looking at the points above. Okay, assuming we can come back in, the first question is, can we get back above and hold above Monday's low, which was at 02? I will not take, it's not an automatic short, although I do expect a rotation at 02 the first time in. And actually, I would expect rotations up at 06 to 08 as well, rejection down. Remember, when we open up, we will have a completely unauctioned bar here. We just opened up. We'll have a completely unauctioned bar all the way down. Unauctioned areas are easy to trade through. Please keep that in mind. Again, first time into that backside at 2002. I expect rejection there. but how much of a rejection, whether it's just a little 1 or 2 point rotation, then continuation to gap fill, or of course the tick is significantly negative 1300. So if we're just gapping down, and if we're back in a bullish mode, remember it wasn't that long ago, we would gap down and drive straight up. On the upside, obviously nothing happens unless we get above Globex high. Above Globex high, those zones, first time in, 2015, 2015 and quarter, 2016 and quarter, then above that 2020 area. That would be my upside target for today. Considering where we're opening, I don't think we're going to be able to stretch much past that. But it is possible to get a V-shape, guys. Come down and V-shape this back up. The next thing that I want to notice is yesterday the tick was predominantly positive and has been for the last couple of days. Part of that could have been simply holiday trading. Obviously the market's back and participation should be much higher. I want to see whether the tick is moving up and down from negative territory to positive territory. And then the last piece is I'm looking for divergence in my larger charts. Am I getting 5-minute tick divergence? 5-minute divergence and on my swing indicator, and then finally the swing indicator itself, right? Swing long entries 1, 2, 3, and then finally the most important one, entry 4 for a push back to the upside. It's also possible to get that to the downside, but considering that we're having a gap down, I'm looking for that trade back to the upside to make a run towards eventually gap fill, assuming we can get above and hold above Monday's low. Eventually, I would expect us to make an attempt at some point to work our way towards gap fill. Failure to get half gap this morning is obviously bearish. So, to recap just really quick, first time into 94 3/4 to 92 3/4, super aggressive traders, i.e. first half hour, fine. The risk is it'll trade straight through just due to dynamics of the first half hour. We need to see if we can get above. I expect rejection at 2002 first time in for a rotation back low. Then it becomes a question of do we hold Globex low? I would look for a trap back up from 94 3/4, 92 3/4 back above Globex low. And then obviously Friday's low and Monday's low, each of those points need to be hurdled to get back into the range. Once we're back in this range, please be aware this has been choppy for 3 days in a row. And so this becomes a grind zone if we get back in here. And I'm essentially looking for a response here and here, first time in for my trades. And then I will call out actively where the scalp points are through the course of the day. And I will start tracking those starting today so that we can get a spreadsheet built on them. And I will start to cover MAE and MFE at some point later today. So that covers it. Does anyone have any questions this morning? Okay, I don't see any questions. And the last piece is Forex Factory. There is zero econ today, guys. It is dead. Federal budget balance comes out at 1 Eastern. Excuse me, 1 Central, 2 Eastern. I'm in a total ADD mode. Let's correct that. Federal budget balance comes out 2 Eastern, 1 Central time. However, I said that, and that's all I have on the docket. That usually leads to balanced days. So the last piece I'll leave on that, on balanced days, even if it's wide ranging, we establish a range. Pushes below tend to push back up. Pushes above tend to push back down. Look for tick divergence at the edges to help you get location back into the middle. So anyways, I'm going to take a quick break, guys. Obviously not a very fast move one way or the other, right? So let's give it some time to develop here in the first 15 minutes. I'm looking right there for my first long, first time in, and I'll be back in just a couple minutes.